I was lugging those heavy grocery bags, climbing onto the second bus of the night, my legs trembling with exhaustion after a 14-hour workday. My cracked hands gripped the plastic handles that dug deep into my skin, and the bus driver looked at me with impatience, like I was taking too long to board. This was my second job of the day, and I still had to go home to cook, clean, and listen to the same complaints I heard every single night. At 62 years old, I was the only one keeping our household afloat, while my 3-year-old son Darius and my 2 8-year-old daughter-in-law Keisha had been lounging on my sofa for 2 full years. 2 years without a job, 2 years living off my meager paychecks, 2 years treating me like I was their personal maid instead of the woman who'd brought Darius into this world and raised him with everything I had. The bus filled up quickly, and I was left standing in the aisle, swaying with bags that felt like they were filled with concrete blocks. My worn-out shoes pinched my swollen feet, and I could feel cold sweat trickling down my back despite the evening chill. People pushed past me without so much as an apology, as if I were invisible, as if an old black woman carrying groceries after a long day's work didn't deserve a single glance of compassion. But I was used to it. My whole life had been like this, invisible to everyone, useful only for my work and my money, a shadow that cooked and cleaned and paid bills but never got thanked or respected. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying not to think about what waited for me at home. I already knew the scene by heart. Darius would be sprawled on the couch with the television blaring, surrounded by dirty dishes and empty beer bottles. Keisha would be beside him painting her nails or scrolling through her phone with that annoyed expression she always wore when I walked through the door. Neither of them would move to help me with the bags. Neither would ask how my day had been, or if I was tired, or if I needed anything. They would just wait, like entitled children, for me to make dinner, wash their clothes, and clean up the mess they'd left scattered all over my house. My eyes filled with tears of anger and exhaustion, but I held them back. I couldn't cry there on a bus full of strangers in Charleston. I had to be strong, as I always was. I had to keep going because if I didn't, who would? My husband had died 4 years ago, and since then, I'd carried everything on my own. The bills, the mortgage, the responsibility of supporting 2 grown adults who refused to act their age. The weight of it all was crushing me slowly, day by day, until I wondered how much longer I could keep standing. That's when I heard it. A man sitting 2 seats ahead was talking on his phone, his voice audible over the rumble of the bus engine. At first, I paid no attention. People talked on phones all the time. But something in his urgent tone made me listen closer. He spoke quietly, professionally, but I could make out every word in the relative quiet of the half-empty bus. Yes, Theodore, I'm certain the last name matches perfectly. Geraldine Brooks, 62 years old, lives in the West Side neighborhood of Charleston. My heart stopped for a second. That was my name. That was my age. My neighborhood was West Side Charleston. She's the only heir we have left to locate, the man continued. The inheritance is substantial. We're talking about more than $3.2 million. Her paternal uncle left her as the primary beneficiary in his will, but we've been trying to track her down for months now. The grocery bags nearly fell from my hands. My legs turned to water, and I had to grab onto the metal pole beside me to keep from collapsing right there in the aisle. $3.2 million. That number echoed in my head like thunder, so loud I could barely hear anything else. Me, Geraldine Brooks, who worked 2 jobs just to scrape together $450 a month, who counted every penny just to buy groceries, who wore secondhand clothes and shoes with holes in the soles, who rode the bus for hours every day because I couldn't afford to fix my broken-down car. Me, the invisible woman no one respected, the one everyone saw as a burden, the tired old lady people pushed past without a second thought. The man on the phone kept talking. We're going to her address tomorrow morning. We hope she's there. This woman has no idea what's coming. Her life is about to change forever. He hung up and stared out the window, completely oblivious to the earthquake he'd just set off inside me. I stood there paralyzed, gripping that pole, processing what I'd just heard. Could it be possible? After so many years of suffering and humiliation and working myself to the bone, was life finally throwing me a lifeline? Then a cruel voice in my head whispered that maybe it was a mistake, that maybe there was another Geraldine Brooks somewhere, that I didn't deserve such luck, that good things didn't happen to people like me. The bus braked suddenly, and I almost lost my balance. My stop was approaching, and with it, the return to my reality. Darius and Keisha would be waiting with their annoyed faces, asking what I'd brought for dinner, demanding I serve them like I always did. But for the first time in years, something had shifted inside me. That overheard conversation had planted a seed of hope in my withered heart, a seed that might grow into something powerful. I got off the bus with the heavy bags, but my steps had different energy now. My eyes, which had been full of tired tears just moments before, now held a new spark. I didn't know exactly what was waiting for me, but I had a feeling my story was about to take a turn that no one, especially Darius and Keisha, could possibly imagine. I walked down the dark Charleston street carrying those bags, each step bringing me closer to a reality I knew by heart. My two-story house, which had been my pride when my husband was alive, now looked neglected and sad under the streetlights. The windows were dirty, the small front yard was full of weeds, the paint was peeling from the siding. Everything reflected the abandonment we'd been living in since Darius and Keisha had turned my home into their personal paradise of laziness. Before I even opened the door, I could hear the television volume turned up to maximum and the stupid laughter coming from inside. As always, my free tenants were enjoying their day off. Day number 730 of consecutive days off, to be exact. 2 full years of them living off me while I worked myself into the ground. I took a deep breath, tucking the secret I'd just discovered deep into my heart, and pushed open the door to my own house. The scene that greeted me was exactly what I'd expected, but after what I'd heard on that bus, I was seeing it with completely different eyes. Darius was sprawled across my favorite armchair, the one I'd worked overtime to buy 12 years ago, with his dirty bare feet propped up on the coffee table. His belly stuck out from under a stained t-shirt he'd been wearing for at least 3 days. Beside him, Keisha was stretched out like royalty on the entire 3-seater sofa, her hair in a messy ponytail, her eyes glued to her phone screen. Finally, "Old woman," Darius grunted without even turning to look at me. "I thought you died on the way home. What'd you bring for dinner? Better not be another one of your broke person meals." His voice carried that contemptuous tone he'd perfected during these 2 years of professional freeloading. Keisha cackled like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard, still not looking up from whatever video she was watching. I set the bags down on the kitchen floor, feeling my arms finally free from the weight that had been my companion for 2 hours of public transportation. My hands trembled slightly, not from exhaustion this time, but from a strange emotion I hadn't felt in years. The possibility of power. But I decided it was best to act normal, at least for now. At least until I knew for certain that what I'd heard was real. "I brought chicken and rice," I said in the quiet voice they'd learned to expect from me. "It'll be ready in about 30 minutes. Keisha huffed with disgust from the sofa, as if my offer were a personal insult to her refined palate. Refined, of course, the palate of a woman who hadn't cooked a meal in 2 years. "Ma," Darius yelled from the living room, still not looking at me. "The beer ran out yesterday and I had to drink water like some kind of peasant. Next time you go shopping, bring back 2 cases, and not that cheap brand you usually buy. Keisha and I deserve better quality." His tone was that of a boss giving orders to an employee, not a son speaking to his mother. But I was used to it. Long ago, I'd stopped being his mother and become his personal ATM and maid service. While I unpacked the groceries, I looked around the house with completely new eyes, those furnishings that Darius and Keisha used as if they owned them, those beds they slept in without paying a single cent of rent, that food I bought with the sweat of my brow working 14 hours a day, the electricity they wasted, the water they used carelessly. All of it was mine. The house was in my name. I paid every single bill. Everything they enjoyed came from my worn-out pockets and my aching back. Keisha got up from the sofa and shuffled toward the kitchen in her ratty pink slippers, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed, watching me like I was some kind of entertainment. "Geraldine," she said with that malicious smirk I'd come to hate, "I saw a purse at the mall yesterday. Real cute, only $200. I'm gonna need you to get it for me this weekend." Not a request, a demand, as if I were her personal bank. "Keisha, I don't have that kind of money right now," I said carefully, keeping my voice neutral. The electric bill was higher this month. She rolled her eyes dramatically. "That's your problem, not mine. You need to work more hours or something. I'm not walking around with this old raggedy purse when all my friends have nice things." Her friends. The ones who also didn't work and lived off their families while posting photos on social media pretending to live glamorous lives. Darius appeared in the kitchen doorway behind his wife. "Ma, Keisha asked you for something. Are you really going to tell her no? After everything we do for you?" I almost laughed at that. Everything they did for me. What exactly did they do besides create more work, more mess, more expenses? "What do you do for me, Darius?" The question came out before I could stop it. His face darkened. "What kind of question is that? We live here, we keep you company. You'd be all alone in this big house if it wasn't for us. You should be grateful we're here." Grateful. They wanted me to be grateful that they'd taken over my home, eaten my food, and treated me like a servant for 2 years. "You're right," I said quietly, turning back to the chicken I was preparing. I should be grateful. But inside, something was changing. That seed of hope from the bus was starting to sprout roots. Keisha went back to the living room, satisfied that she'd gotten the last word. Darius lingered in the doorway for a moment. "And Ma, hurry up with that food. We're starving over here." As I cooked dinner in my own kitchen, listening to them laugh at the TV in my living room, sitting on my furniture, I made a decision. If that lawyer really showed up at my door tomorrow, if that inheritance was real, I was going to find out exactly who my son and his wife truly were. Not the people they pretended to be, but who they were when they thought I had nothing. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 like I always did, my body conditioned by years of early shifts and long workdays, but this morning was different. This morning, I woke up with anticipation instead of dread. I made coffee in my quiet kitchen, enjoying the brief peace before Darius and Keisha woke up around noon, as they always did. The house was still mine in these early hours, before their presence filled it with demands and complaints and disrespect. I got ready for my first job at the nursing home, where I worked as a caregiver. It was hard work, physically exhausting for a 62-year-old woman, but I'd never complained. I took care of people who needed help, who appreciated what I did for them, even if they couldn't always express it. It was more than I got at home. I left a note on the kitchen counter saying I'd be back around 3, knowing full well that neither Darius nor Keisha would even notice I was gone until they got hungry and realized there was no one to make them lunch. All day at work, I couldn't focus properly. My mind kept drifting back to that conversation I'd overheard on the bus. $3.2 million. My paternal uncle, who I barely remembered from my childhood, had left me that kind of money? Uncle James. I vaguely recalled a tall man with kind eyes who'd moved up north when I was maybe 10 years old. We'd lost touch over the decades, the way families sometimes do when distance and life get in the way. I'd heard years ago that he'd never married, never had children, that he'd done well for himself in business. But I'd never imagined this. "Geraldine, you okay?" My supervisor Martha asked during our lunch break. "You seem distracted today." "Just tired," I lied. "Didn't sleep well." "You work too hard, girl," Martha said, shaking her head. "When you gonna slow down and enjoy life a little?" I wanted to tell her that I worked this hard because I had no choice, because 2 grown adults were living off me at home, but pride kept me quiet. I didn't want people knowing how my own son treated me. I left work at 2:45, skipping my usual second shift at the grocery store. I'd called in sick that morning, something I almost never did. But if that lawyer was coming today, I needed to be home. The bus ride back to Westside Charleston seemed to take forever. Every stop, every delay made my heart race a little faster. What if I'd misheard? What if it was all some cruel coincidence? What if I got my hopes up for nothing? I got home around 3:30. Darius and Keisha were awake, naturally, sitting in their usual spots like furniture that had grown roots. "You're home early," Darius said suspiciously. "You get fired or something?" "Just finished early today," I said, setting down my purse. Keisha looked up from her phone. "Well, since you're here, I'm hungry. Make me something to eat." Not "we're hungry," not "could you please." Just a flat command, like I was the help. "I'll make something in a bit," I said, moving to the window where I could watch the street. "In a bit?" Keisha's voice went sharp. "I said I'm hungry now, Geraldine. What's wrong with you today?" Before I could answer, a sleek black car pulled up in front of my house. My heart jumped into my throat. A man in a suit got out, carrying a briefcase. He looked at the house number, checked something on his phone, and started walking up my cracked front walkway. This was it. This was real. The doorbell rang. "Who's that?" Darius asked, not moving from his spot. "You expecting somebody?" "I'll get it," I said, my hands trembling as I walked to the door. I opened it to find a well-dressed black man in his 42nds, professional and polished in a way that seemed out of place in our rundown neighborhood. "Mrs. Geraldine Brooks?" he asked with a warm smile. "Yes, that's me. My name is Peter Hamilton. I'm an attorney with Hamilton and Associates. I've been trying to locate you for several months regarding an inheritance from your late uncle, James Brooks. May I come in?" My knees went weak. It was true. All of it was true. "Of course," I managed to say, stepping aside. Peter walked into my living room, and I saw him take in the scene. Darius sprawled on the couch in his stained clothes, Keisha beside him looking annoyed at the interruption. The messy house, the dirty dishes, the general air of neglect. "This is my son Darius and his wife Keisha," I said. Peter nodded politely at them. "Nice to meet you both, Mrs. Brooks. Is there somewhere we could speak privately about your uncle's estate?" "Estate?" Darius sat up suddenly, his eyes sharp with interest. "What estate?" "Ma, you didn't tell us nothing about this." "I just found out myself," I said truthfully. "Whatever it is, we can all hear it," Keisha said, standing up. "We're family. Ain't no secrets in this house." Peter looked at me questioningly. I could have asked him to stay, to discuss everything in front of them, but something stopped me. Some instinct told me to keep this to myself, at least for now. "Actually, let's talk in the kitchen," I said to Peter. "Ma, hold up," Darius said, following us. "If there's money involved, I got a right to know. I'm your son." Peter turned to face him with a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sir, this is a private legal matter between myself and Mrs. Brooks. I'm sure she'll share whatever she feels comfortable sharing when we're finished." We left Darius and Keisha in the living room, their curiosity practically radiating off them, and sat down at my small kitchen table. Peter pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "Mrs. Brooks, your uncle James Brooks passed away 6 months ago. He named you as the sole beneficiary of his estate, which includes liquid assets, property, and investments totaling approximately $3.2 million. The number hung in the air between us. $3.2 million. Even though I'd heard it on the bus yesterday, hearing it confirmed, seeing it written on official documents that Peter was sliding across my kitchen table, made it real in a way that stole my breath. "I know this must be overwhelming," Peter said gently, watching my face. "Your uncle was a very successful businessman. He owned several properties in Philadelphia and had substantial investments. He never married, never had children, and according to his will, he wanted his estate to go to you, his only living relative from his brother's side of the family." My hands shook as I looked at the papers. Numbers and legal terms swam before my eyes. Property deeds, bank account statements, investment portfolios. "Why now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why did it take 6 months to find me?" "Your uncle's records had an old address for you from over 20 years ago. It took our investigators time to track your current location. I apologize for the delay, but we're here now, and I'm prepared to begin the transfer process immediately." From the living room, I could hear Darius and Keisha whispering urgently, trying to eavesdrop but not quite able to hear what was being said. "Mrs. Brooks," Peter continued, "there are some documents you'll need to sign, and we'll need to set up accounts for the transfer of funds. This will take a few days to process. In the meantime, I need to verify your identity with some documentation. Do you have your driver's license and social security card available?" I nodded numbly and went to get my documents from my bedroom. As I passed through the living room, both Darius and Keisha jumped up. "Ma, what's going on?" Darius demanded. "What's that man talking about? I heard him say something about millions." "We'll talk about it after he leaves," I said, my mind racing. "We'll talk about it now," Keisha snapped. "If there's money coming into this house, we got a right to know about it." I looked at her, really looked at her, this woman who hadn't contributed a dime to this household in 2 years, who demanded purses and beer and treated me like a servant, who thought she had rights to money that wasn't hers. "It's not your business, Keisha," I said quietly but firmly. Her mouth fell open in shock. I'd never spoken to her like that before. Never stood up to her demands or her disrespect. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice dangerous. "What did you just say to me?" I said, "It's not your business. This is between me and the lawyer." Darius stepped between us. "Ma, you better watch how you talk to my wife. Now tell us what's going on." "That man said something about an estate, about property." "What kind of inheritance are we talking about here?" "We," he said, "we," as if whatever I'd inherited automatically belonged to him too. I went to my bedroom, got my documents, and returned to the kitchen without answering him. Peter was waiting patiently, and I could see he'd picked up on the tension in the house. After verifying my identity and having me sign several documents, Peter packed up his briefcase. "Mrs. Brooks, I'll be in touch within the next few days. We'll set up a meeting at my office to discuss the details of managing your inheritance. In the meantime, I'd recommend you think about what you'd like to do with these assets." "I will. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton." He handed me his card. "Call me if you have any questions. And Mrs. Brooks?" He lowered his voice. "Consider being careful about who you tell about this inheritance. Money can change relationships, and not always for the better." I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. After Peter left, I stood in my kitchen, holding those documents, trying to process what had just happened. My life had changed. Everything had changed. "Ma," Darius's voice boomed from the living room. "Get in here right now and explain what just happened." I walked into the living room, where both of them stood waiting, their faces a mixture of excitement and greed that made something inside me go cold. "You inherited something," Keisha said. "We heard that man talking. How much? What did he say?" I looked at my son, at the man I'd raised, and made a decision. Peter's words echoed in my head. Money can change relationships, but I wanted to know if the relationship could change for the better, or if what I suspected about them was true. "He said I inherited some money from Uncle James," I said carefully. "Not much. Maybe $15,000 or $20,000. Enough to help with bills for a while." I watched their faces carefully. Darius's expression shifted from excitement to disappointment, but then his eyes narrowed with calculation. "That's it? Just 15 or 20,000? I thought I heard him say something about millions." "You must have misheard. It's a small inheritance." Keisha crossed her arms. "Well, that's better than nothing. When do you get the money?" "A few days," maybe a week. Good, Darius said, sitting back down on the couch. We got some bills that need paying. And Keisha needs that purse. Plus, I've been thinking about getting a new gaming system. My heart sank even as I'd expected exactly this reaction. Before they even knew how much it was, they were already planning how to spend it. Actually, I said slowly, I was thinking about using it to catch up on the mortgage. We're 3 months behind. That was a lie. I'd somehow managed to stay current on the mortgage despite everything, but I wanted to see how they'd react. The mortgage can wait, Keisha said dismissively. Banks always give you extensions and whatever. We need that money for important things. Important things. Gaming systems and purses. I also thought maybe I could finally fix my car, I continued. It's been broken down for 8 months. It would save me hours on the bus every day. Darius waved his hand dismissively. Ma, you're used to the bus. Ain't no point wasting money on that old piece of junk anyway. It's gonna break down again in a month. Better to spend the money on things we actually need. Things they actually needed. Not things that would make my life easier. Not catching up on bills. Just their wants. Over the next 3 days, before I had to meet with Peter again, I watched Darius and Keisha carefully. I cooked and cleaned and went to work like normal, but I was studying them in a way I never had before. Every day, they asked about the money. When was it coming? How much exactly was it? What was I planning to do with it? And every day, they made it clearer that they expected that money to be spent on them. Keisha started showing me pictures of things she wanted to buy. Darius made a list of electronics he said we needed for the house. Not once did either of them suggest helping with bills. Not once did they offer to contribute to the household. Not once did they show any concern for my well-being or my needs. On the 4th day, I met with Peter at his office in downtown Charleston. It was a beautiful building with high ceilings and mahogany furniture that spoke of success and stability. I felt out of place in my worn work clothes, but Peter greeted me warmly and led me to a private conference room. Mrs. Brooks, I've prepared all the paperwork for the transfer of your uncle's estate. Before we begin, I want to make sure you understand everything and that you're comfortable with the process. He spent the next hour explaining everything in detail. The properties in Philadelphia that could be sold or rented out, the investment accounts that were generating monthly income, the liquid assets that would be transferred to new accounts in my name only. I'd recommend setting up a trust, Peter said. It protects your assets and gives you control over how the money is distributed. It also provides some legal protection. Protection from what? Peter hesitated. From family members who might try to claim they're entitled to a portion of the inheritance. I've seen it happen many times, Mrs. Brooks. People come out of nowhere when they hear about money. I thought about Darius and Keisha, about how they'd already started planning how to spend money they thought was only $15,000 or $20,000. What would they do if they knew the truth? Yes, I said firmly, let's set up a trust. We spent another hour going through paperwork. Peter explained that I'd have access to the funds within a week, but that it would be wise to take time before making any major decisions. Mrs. Brooks, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Your home situation, the people living with you, are they aware of the full extent of your inheritance? I shook my head. No, and I'd like to keep it that way for now. Peter nodded knowingly. That's probably wise. Take your time, see how people treat you when they think you have nothing. It will show you who really cares about you versus who cares about your money. His words confirmed what I'd already been thinking, what I'd already been planning. I went home that evening with a secret burning in my chest, $3.2 million. My life could change overnight. I could quit both my jobs. I could rest. I could finally breathe without the constant weight of financial stress crushing me. But I didn't want to do any of that yet. Not until I knew for certain who my son really was. When I got home, Darius was waiting at the door. Ma, where you been? I called your work and they said you weren't there today. I had to meet with the lawyer." His eyes lit up. "The money came through?" "Not yet. Just more paperwork." His face fell with disappointment. "How much longer?" "Keisha and I been waiting. We got plans." "Plans. Always their plans, never asking about mine." Over the next week, I continued to work both my jobs even though I didn't need to anymore. Peter had transferred an initial amount to a new bank account he'd helped me set up, an account that Darius and Keisha knew nothing about. But I kept up the appearance of struggling, of being exhausted, of barely getting by. I wanted to see how far they'd push me. And push they did. Keisha started demanding that I buy her more expensive things. "Since you got that inheritance money coming, you can afford to treat me better. I want to go shopping this weekend. Real shopping, not at the thrift store." Darius informed me that he and Keisha needed a vacation. "We've been stuck in this house for too long, Ma. We're thinking about going to Miami for a week. You can spot us the money when that check comes in." Not if. When. They'd already decided my money was theirs to spend. The breaking point came 10 days after my meeting with Peter. I'd worked a double shift, 16 hours on my feet, taking care of elderly patients who actually appreciated what I did for them. I came home at 10 at night, exhausted beyond words, my feet swollen, my back aching. The house was a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink, food wrappers on every surface, beer bottles scattered across the coffee table. The trash was overflowing because neither of them could be bothered to take it out. Darius and Keisha were on the couch, exactly where I'd left them that morning. "Finally," Keisha said, "we're starving over here. What you gonna make for dinner?" I looked at her, at my son, at the mess they'd made of my house, at the disrespect that radiated from every word they spoke. "I'm not making dinner," I said quietly. They both stared at me, like I'd spoken a foreign language. "What you mean you're not making dinner?" Darius said. "Ma, we're hungry." "Then make something yourselves. There's food in the kitchen." Keisha's face twisted with anger. "Excuse me? You're supposed to take care of us, Geraldine. That's your job as a mother." My job as a mother was to raise my son to be a responsible adult. I did that job. What you're asking for now isn't a mother, it's a servant. Darius stood up, his face red. "Ma, what's gotten into you lately? Ever since that lawyer showed up, you've been acting weird, real disrespectful." "I'm being disrespectful?" I asked, and I could hear the edge in my own voice. "I work 14-hour days to keep a roof over your heads and food in your mouths. I clean up after you like your children. I pay every bill in this house while you two sit on that couch doing nothing. And I'm the one being disrespectful?" "We're family," Keisha shot back. "Family takes care of each other. That's what you're supposed to do." "You're right," I said. "Family should take care of each other. So when are you going to start taking care of me? When are you going to contribute to this household? When are you going to show me even a tiny bit of respect or gratitude?" Darius looked genuinely confused, like these questions had never occurred to him. "Ma, we keep you company. We're here for you. Ain't that enough?" "No, Darius, it's not enough. Not anymore." Keisha stood up, her hands on her hips. "Oh, I see what this is about. That little bit of inheritance money got you thinking you're better than us now. You think you can just stop taking care of your own son because you got a few $1,000s coming? A few $1,000s, if they only knew. I think," I said carefully, "that it's time for you both to start taking care of yourselves." "What's that supposed to mean?" Darius asked. "It means I'm tired. I'm 62 years old and I'm exhausted. I've worked hard my whole life, and I'm not going to spend whatever years I have left being disrespected in my own home." Keisha laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Where we supposed to go, Geraldine? You know we don't have money for our own place. You can't just kick us out." I looked at her, at the entitlement in her eyes, the absolute certainty that I would never follow through on any threat, because I never had before. "I'm not kicking you out," I said. "Not yet. But things are going to change around here. Starting tomorrow, you both need to start looking for jobs, and you need to start contributing to the household expenses. We'll get jobs when the right opportunity comes along, Darius said dismissively. We ain't just going to take any old thing. The right opportunity, I repeated, feeling something inside me finally snap. You've been waiting for the right opportunity for 2 years. How much longer are you planning to wait? Another year? 5 years? 10? That's our business, Keisha said. You don't get to tell us when we should work. We're adults. You're right. You are adults, which means you should be taking care of yourselves instead of living off your 2-year-old mother who works 2 jobs. Darius's expression darkened. You know what, Ma? I'm getting real tired of this new attitude. Ever since that lawyer came, you've been acting like you're too good for us. Like you don't owe us nothing. Owe you? The word came out sharper than I intended. What exactly do I owe you, Darius? You're our mother, our family. You're supposed to help us out when times are hard. Times have been hard for you for 730 days straight. At what point do hard times become a lifestyle choice? Keisha stepped closer to me, her face twisted with anger. You selfish old woman. You finally get a little bit of money, and now you think you can just abandon your own family. What kind of mother are you? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but disappointment, not anger anymore, just a deep, profound sadness for what my life had become. I'm the kind of mother who's done sacrificing herself for people who don't appreciate it, I said quietly. I walked past them to my bedroom, closed the door, and for the first time in 2 years, I locked it. I could hear them outside, arguing with each other, their voices rising in frustration and disbelief. That night, I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything, about the inheritance that could change my life, about the son who saw me as nothing more than a bank account and a maid, about the daughter-in-law who had never once shown me kindness or respect. And I made a decision. I was going to continue the test for a little while longer. I needed to see if there was anything redeemable in them, any spark of decency or gratitude or love that wasn't tied to what I could provide. The next morning, I woke up early as usual and made breakfast only for myself. When Darius and Keisha finally emerged from their bedroom around noon, they found the kitchen clean and empty. "Where's breakfast?" Darius asked, looking around confused. "I made myself something at 6 this morning," I said, not looking up from the book I was reading. "There's cereal in the cabinet and eggs in the fridge if you're hungry." "You expect me to cook?" Keisha said incredulously. "I expect you to feed yourself. You're 28 years old." For the next week, I continued this pattern. I cooked only for myself. I cleaned only my own mess. I did only my own laundry. The house began to look even worse as their trash and dirty dishes piled up, but I refused to touch any of it. Darius and Keisha were outraged. "This is ridiculous," Keisha complained on the 3rd day. "There's no clean towels. You always do the laundry on Wednesdays." "I did my laundry. Yours is in the hamper where you left it. The washing machine works the same for everyone." "I don't know how to use it," she whined. "Then it's time you learned." Their frustration grew with each passing day. They'd never had to take care of themselves, and they had no idea how to do even basic tasks. I watched them struggle with a mixture of pity and vindication. On the 10th day of my small rebellion, Keisha confronted me in the kitchen. "Geraldine, this has gone on long enough. I want to talk about that inheritance money. When's it coming? Because Darius and I have decided we need at least $5,000 of it. We got debts to pay." "Debts? What debts?" "That's none of your business. We just need the money. You're getting it from that dead uncle anyway, so you can spare some for your own family." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Keisha, that inheritance is mine, not ours. Mine, and I'll decide what to do with it." Her face flushed red. "Are you serious right now? After everything we've done for you, you're going to be selfish with that money?" "What have you done for me?" I asked calmly. "Specifically, what have you done?" She opened her mouth, then closed it, struggling to come up with an answer. We live here. We're your family. That should be enough. It's not. Darius appeared in the doorway. Ma, I heard what Keisha said about the money. She's right. We need our share. 5,000 ain't even that much. You're being real petty about this. Your share, I repeated, of an inheritance that was left to me by my uncle. An uncle you never met. An uncle whose funeral you didn't attend because you couldn't be bothered to get off that couch. Tell me, Darius, what makes you think you're entitled to any of it? Because I'm your son, he shouted. Because when you die, everything you got is going to be mine anyway, so why not help me out now when I need it? The honesty of that statement took my breath away. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He was waiting for me to die so he could inherit whatever I had. You know what? I said, standing up. You're right. When I die, you'll inherit whatever I leave behind, but that could be 20 or 30 years from now. What are you going to do until then? Sit on that couch waiting for me to die? That's not what I meant, he backtracked, but the damage was done. I'd heard the truth in his voice. I think it's exactly what you meant. Keisha crossed her arms. You know what, Geraldine? You keep acting like this. We might just leave. See how you like living in this house all alone with nobody to keep you company. Is that supposed to be a threat? I asked. Because honestly, Keisha, it sounds more like a promise. Her mouth dropped open. Darius looked shocked. They'd expected me to beg them to stay, to apologize, to go back to how things were. But I was done with how things were. Actually, I said, the words coming out before I'd fully thought them through. I think that's a good idea. I think you two should leave. What? Darius said. You heard me. I want you both out of my house. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. You can't kick us out, Keisha sputtered. This is our home too. No, it's not. It's my home. My name is on the deed. I pay the mortgage. You two are guests who have overstayed their welcome by about 730 days. Darius's face went from shocked to furious. Fine, we'll leave. But don't expect us to come back. Don't expect us to take care of you when you're old and sick and need help. You're on your own, Ma. I've been on my own for 4 years, Darius, since your father died. The only difference now is that I won't have 2 extra people to take care of. They stormed out of the kitchen, and I could hear them in their bedroom, arguing loudly, probably figuring out who they could move in with, whose generosity they could exploit next. I sat back down at my kitchen table, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. I'd done it. I'd finally stood up to them, and it felt terrifying and liberating all at once. For the next week, Darius and Keisha barely spoke to me. They stayed in their bedroom most of the time, coming out only to raid the kitchen for whatever food they could find. The tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife, but I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd stood up for myself. Finally, on day 20 of their 30-day notice, Keisha cornered me as I was getting ready for work. Her face was different than I'd ever seen it, not angry or entitled, but desperate. Geraldine, we need to talk. I have to leave for work in 10 minutes. This can't wait. She sat down at the kitchen table, and I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Darius and we can't find anywhere to go. Nobody will take us in. His friends all have their own families. My sister said she doesn't have room, and we don't have money for a deposit on an apartment. That sounds like a problem you two need to solve. But where are we supposed to go? We don't have anything saved up. We don't have jobs. I looked at her, at the woman who disrespected me for 2 years, and felt something that might have been pity, but I pushed it down. This was a lesson they needed to learn. You have 10 days left to figure it out. Geraldine, please. Her voice broke. Can't we work something out? We'll start looking for jobs today. We'll help around the house. We'll pay you rent as soon as we can. Just don't kick us out. You should have thought about all of this 2 years ago, Keisha. Or 1 year ago. or even 6 months ago. But you didn't. You thought you could live off me forever. We made mistakes. We know that now. But you can't just throw us out on the street. Darius is your son, and I'm his mother. But that doesn't mean I have to support him forever, especially when he treats me the way he has." Tears started rolling down her face. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. "What are we supposed to do?" "Get jobs. Find an apartment you can afford. Take care of yourselves like adults. The same things millions of people do every day. But we don't know how." That statement right there summed up everything that was wrong with them. At 33 and 28 years old, they didn't know how to take care of themselves because they'd never had to. And I was partly to blame for that. I'd enabled them, made it easy for them to be lazy and dependent. But that ended now. "Then you'll learn," I said, picking up my purse. "You have 10 days. I left for work, leaving her sitting at my kitchen table crying. Part of me felt guilty, but a stronger part of me knew this was necessary. Over the next week, I watched them panic. They finally started looking at job listings online. They called places asking about apartments. They argued with each other constantly about whose fault this was, whose friends should help them, what they were going to do. But they didn't apologize to me. Not once. They didn't thank me for the 2 years I'd supported them. They didn't acknowledge how they'd treated me or show any real remorse for their behavior. They were only sorry now because there were consequences. On day 28, 2 days before they were supposed to be out, Darius came to me with a different approach. He'd clearly decided that anger and entitlement weren't working, so now he was trying guilt. "Ma, I've been thinking about Dad a lot lately." I looked up from the book I was reading. "Have you?" "Yeah. About how he'd feel if he knew you were kicking me out, his only son. He'd be real disappointed in you." The audacity of that statement nearly took my breath away. Your father would be disappointed in me? Not in you for being a 3-year-old man who hasn't worked in 2 years? Not in you for treating your mother like a servant? Dad always said family comes first. You're right, he did say that. He also said that a man takes care of his family, that a man works hard and provides. He said that being a man means taking responsibility for yourself and the people you love. Which of those things have you been doing, Darius? He had no answer for that. Your father, I continued, worked every single day of his adult life until the cancer made it impossible. Even when he was sick, even when he could barely stand, he tried to contribute. He took pride in taking care of his family. If he could see you now, sitting on that couch for 2 years while your 2-year-old mother works herself to exhaustion, he wouldn't be disappointed in me. He'd be ashamed of you. Darius's face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be. The child I'd raised with so much love and hope, but that little boy had grown into a man who'd forgotten every lesson his father and I had tried to teach him. I'm sorry, Ma, he said, and his voice sounded genuine for the first time. I know I messed up. I know I let you down. But I'm your son, your only child. You can't just give up on me. I'm not giving up on you, Darius. I'm giving you the chance to grow up, to become the man you're supposed to be. But I can't do that while I'm enabling you to stay a child. What if we can't make it? What if we end up homeless? Then you'll figure it out. You'll do what you have to do to survive, just like I've been doing for the past 4 years. On day 30, exactly 1 month after I'd told them to leave, Darius and Keisha packed their belongings into garbage bags and some old suitcases. They'd found a room to rent in a house across town, sharing a single bedroom and splitting the $600 monthly rent. Keisha had gotten a job cleaning offices at night. Darius had found work at a warehouse. They were finally taking care of themselves. As they loaded their things into a friend's car, Keisha didn't say goodbye to me. She just got in the car and stared straight ahead, her face hard with resentment. But Darius paused at the door. I hope you're happy, Ma. I hope that inheritance money keeps you warm at night since you'd rather have it than your own son. The inheritance has nothing to do with this, I said quietly. This is about respect. about you learning to be a man instead of a burden." He shook his head. "Whatever helps you sleep at night." And then they were gone. The house was silent. Empty. Mine. I walked through the rooms, seeing them differently now. The living room without Darius sprawled on the couch, the kitchen without dirty dishes piled everywhere, the bathroom without Keisha's makeup scattered across every surface. It was clean, peaceful, quiet. I sat down in my favorite chair, the one Darius had claimed as his own for 2 years, and I cried. Not because I missed them, but because I'd finally done what I should have done a long time ago. I'd chosen myself. The next day, I called Peter. "I'm ready to access my inheritance. All of it." "Are you sure, Mrs. Brooks? Have you thought about what you want to do with it?" "I'm going to quit both my jobs. I'm going to fix up this house. And then I'm going to figure out how to live the rest of my life on my own terms." That sounds like an excellent plan. Within a week, I'd quit both my jobs. My supervisor, Martha, hugged me when I told her I was leaving. "You finally gonna rest, girl?" "I'm finally gonna live," I told her. I hired contractors to fix up my house. New paint inside and out, repairs to the roof, new flooring to replace the worn carpets, a renovated kitchen with modern appliances. I turned one of the bedrooms into a proper sitting room with comfortable furniture and good lighting for reading. I bought myself new clothes. Not expensive designer things, but nice, comfortable clothes that fit properly and made me feel good. I got my hair done at a real salon for the first time in years. I bought a reliable used car so I never had to take the bus again. Every change I made was for me. Every decision was mine, and it felt incredible. 3 months after Darius and Keisha left, I was working in my garden, planting flowers I'd always wanted but never had time for, when a car pulled up. I looked up to see Darius getting out, and my heart clenched. He looked different, thinner, tired. His clothes were wrinkled and his hands looked rough, like he'd been doing real physical work. He walked slowly up my front path, and there was something in his posture that was completely different from before. Humility. "Hi, Ma," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" I set down my gardening tools and brushed the dirt from my hands. "Come sit on the porch." We sat in the 2 chairs I'd bought just last week, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "The house looks beautiful," he said, looking around. "You fixed it up real nice." "Thank you, Ma." I came to apologize. Really apologize, not like before when I was just trying to get you to let us stay. I listened, saying nothing. "I've been working at the warehouse for 3 months now, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. My whole body hurts all the time. My hands are all torn up. I come home so tired I can barely eat before I fall asleep." He looked down at his calloused hands. "And all I can think about is how you did this for years. 2 jobs, longer hours than what I'm working now. And you still came home and took care of me and Keisha. You still cooked and cleaned and never complained." His voice broke. "I never appreciated it, Ma. I never understood what you were sacrificing until I had to do it myself." Tears started rolling down his cheeks. "Keisha and I split up. She left me last month for her boss at the cleaning company. Turns out when she didn't have your money keeping her comfortable, she realized she never really loved me. She just loved the easy life we had at your expense." I felt a pang of sadness for him, but I let him continue. "I've had a lot of time to think these past months, about all the ways I treated you, all the times I disrespected you in your own house, how I let Keisha talk to you like you were nothing." He looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I was a terrible son, worse than terrible. I was cruel and selfish and blind to everything you did for me." "Yes," I said simply. "You were." He nodded, accepting that. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I needed to come here and tell you face to face that you were right about everything. About work, about independence, about how we treated you. You were right, and I was wrong." "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "Keep working. Keep learning how to take care of myself. Maybe go to night school, try to get some kind of certificate or degree, build something for myself instead of waiting for handouts. That's good, Darius. I'm proud of you for that. His eyes lit up with hope. You are? I'm proud that you're finally learning these lessons, that you had the courage to come here and apologize honestly, that you're working hard even though it's difficult. Ma, do you think maybe sometime we could try to have a real relationship? Not like before, but something new, something based on respect? I thought about that carefully. We can try, but it has to be built slowly. You can't just erase 2 years of disrespect with one apology. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. We talked for another hour. About his job, about his plans for the future, about the little room he was renting and how different his life was now. He asked about me, really asked, and actually listened to my answers. When he left that afternoon, we hugged. It was different from any hug we'd shared in years. It was honest. Over the next months, Darius visited regularly. Once a week at first, then more often. He never asked for money. He never expected me to cook for him or do anything for him. He just came to visit, to talk, to slowly rebuild what we'd lost. He met me for coffee. We went to the market together. He helped me plant more flowers in my garden, working alongside me instead of watching from the sidelines. I watched him grow into the man I'd always hoped he'd become. It had taken losing everything for him to find himself, but he was finding himself. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after he'd first come back, he brought someone with him, a young woman with a kind face and intelligent eyes. Ma, this is Nicole. She works at the warehouse with me. We've been seeing each other for a few months. Nicole shook my hand warmly. Mrs. Brooks, Darius talks about you all the time. He says you're the strongest woman he knows. I smiled at my son. He didn't always think that. No, Darius admitted. But I do now. A year after I'd received my inheritance, I stood in my beautiful garden on a warm Charleston morning, looking at the red roses I'd planted that were now blooming magnificently. My house had been transformed from a neglected shell into a home I was proud of. More importantly, I had been transformed. Darius came by that morning with Nicole. They'd gotten engaged the week before, and he wanted to show me the ring. It's not much, he said, showing me the simple band. But I saved up for it myself. Didn't ask nobody for help. It's perfect, I told him honestly, because it represents something you worked for. Nicole hugged me. Mrs. Brooks, I wanted to ask if you'd help me plan the wedding. Darius says you're amazing at organizing things. I'd be honored. After they left, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. That overheard conversation on the bus had changed everything. But not because of the money itself. The inheritance had given me options, yes. Financial security, absolutely. But more than that, it had given me the courage to demand respect. To stop accepting less than I deserved. To choose myself. I thought about Keisha, who according to Darius was now living with her third man since leaving him, still looking for someone to support her easy lifestyle. She'd never learned the lesson. She'd never grown. But Darius had. He'd fallen hard, hit bottom, and clawed his way back up through hard work and humility. He'd learned that respect wasn't something you could demand, it was something you earned. That love meant sacrifice, but not at the expense of your own dignity. My phone rang. It was Martha from the nursing home. Geraldine, I know you're retired, but I wanted to ask if you'd consider volunteering here once a week. The patients still ask about you all the time. They miss you. I smiled. I'd love to. Not for the money, but because I miss them too. That was another thing the inheritance had given me. The freedom to work because I wanted to, not because I had to. To contribute on my own terms. I'd also started a small scholarship fund for older women returning to school. Women who, like me, had spent their lives taking care of everyone else and now wanted to do something for themselves. It wasn't a huge fund, but it helped a few women each year, and that felt good. The doorbell rang. interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door to find a young woman, maybe 20 years old, standing nervously on my porch. "Mrs. Brooks? My name is Jasmine. I'm a student at the College of Charleston. I received the Brooks Scholarship this semester, and I wanted to thank you in person. Come in, please." She sat in my living room looking around with wide eyes. "This is beautiful. Everything about your home is so warm and welcoming." "Thank you. Would you like some tea?" Over tea and cookies, Jasmine told me her story. She'd dropped out of high school at 16 to take care of her sick mother. After her mother passed, she'd worked minimum wage jobs for years, feeling trapped and hopeless. Then she'd heard about my scholarship for women over 55 returning to education. "Wait," I said, "you're 20. The scholarship is for women over 55. She smiled. I lied about my age on the application. I was desperate. But then when I got the scholarship, I came clean to the committee. I told them the truth and said I'd understand if they took it back. What did they say? They said the spirit of the scholarship was to help women who'd been overlooked and underestimated, women who'd sacrificed their own dreams to take care of others, and that I qualified, regardless of age. I laughed. They were right. We talked for over an hour. About her classes, her dreams of becoming a nurse, her hope of eventually helping other young women like herself. When she left, she hugged me. "Thank you for seeing value in people like me, people who the world usually ignores." After she left, I thought about her words, "people the world usually ignores." That had been me for so long. The tired old woman on the bus, the invisible caregiver, the taken-for-granted mother. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I'd found my voice, my strength, my worth. That evening, Darius called. "Ma, Nicole and I were talking. We want to get married in your garden, if that's okay with you. We can't afford a big venue, but your garden is more beautiful than anything we could rent anyway. I'd be honored to host your wedding here. Thanks, Ma. For everything. For kicking me out when I needed it. For teaching me lessons I should have learned long ago. For not giving up on me even when I deserved it. I love you, Darius. I always have. But love doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. I know that now." After we hung up, I sat in my garden as the sun set over Charleston, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about Peter's words that day in my kitchen a year ago. "Your life is about to change forever." He'd been right. But not just because of the money. My life had changed because I'd learned that respect isn't begged for, it's commanded. That sometimes the greatest kindness you can show someone is forcing them to face consequences. That it's never too late to start valuing yourself. The inheritance had given me financial freedom, but I'd given myself something more valuable. The freedom to live with dignity. To make my own choices. To be seen and heard and respected. At 62 years old, I'd finally learned that I mattered. Not because of what I could do for others, but because I was valuable simply for being me. And as the stars came out over my perfect garden, I smiled, knowing that the best chapters of my life were still being written, not by obligation or guilt or other people's expectations, but by me. For me. On my own terms. And that was the greatest inheritance of all. That is Geraldine Brooks's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these stories about family exploitation, unexpected blessings, and the moment when you finally choose yourself over people who take you for granted. Real question, if you were Geraldine, what would you have done? Would you have told your son about the full inheritance right away? Would you have let them stay after they showed their true colors? Or would you have tested them the way Geraldine did? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something. Share it if you know someone supporting adult children who refuse to work. someone being treated like a servant in their own home, someone who thinks they're too old to start over and demand respect. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about family financial abuse, adult children who exploit their parents, the power of setting boundaries, and what happens when inheritance reveals people's true character. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the people you sacrifice everything for are the ones who appreciate you least. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is forcing them to grow up. Sometimes respect only comes when you stop accepting disrespect. And sometimes an unexpected blessing shows you that it's never too late to choose yourself and start living on your own terms. See you in the next video.